Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session on possible career paths for grad students in agriculture and food studies. Before we get going, I'm going to make a quick plug that I think both of you will appreciate. Don't forget, we are having a meeting at 5 o'clock, a business meeting for grad student and early career professionals at 5, and then after that, we are going to be migrating out for food and imbibement. So tell your friends they should come join us as well. I think maybe if we all begin with I'm going to sit down now, that's good enough. I don't want to stand. Maybe if we all begin with a quick introduction before we kind of get going with our stuff. Does that sound good? You can tell we planned this really well. I'm Shawn Trivette. I am assistant professor of sociology at Louisiana Tech University. I've been there for 2 years now. Got my degree in 2012 from UMass Amherst. I'm going to be talking about academic paths.
Hi, I'm Farryl Bertman. I'm a research scientist at the Gretchen Swanson Center for Nutrition. I'm also an assistant professor at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. I got my doctorate at Arizona State University. And I see some Sun Devils. Woo-hoo. And I'm going to be talking about career choices in nonprofit research centers.
I'm Chelsea Bardo-Lewis. I'm agricultural policy administrator with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. I got my master's at the Tufts Freeman School, and I will be talking about careers in government.
Hi, I'm Florence Becot. I am a research specialist at the Center for Rural Studies at UVM, and I got my master's in community development and public economics. So I guess I will be talking about research positions at the master level.
I'm Swanson. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. And I've been a postdoctoral fellow for whenever. I graduated at the same time as Shawn, and I'm going to be talking about making a career path out of not making career choices.
Cool. So actually, I guess on that, I should switch over to the two people who have slides, which are me and Farryl. So I'm going to talk a little bit about searching for tenure track positions and basically going into academia. And perhaps the best tip I can give you is if this is something that you think you want to do, I highly recommend getting a copy of this book on the market, which actually I'm going to pass around if people want to thumb through, feel free, just make sure I get it back. It's written primarily to social scientists, but even if you are not in a social science field, it has some really, really useful stuff in it about application materials and job market and that kind of thing. Way more than I can fit into 8 minutes. So I'm going to give you the highlights, but you should check that book out if you're interested in knowing more about that. I'm going to talk about this in basically 4 steps. And the first step that you really need to think about in terms of the academic job market is what type of academic job do you want, if assuming you are sticking with an academic job. There are a lot of different types of academic jobs that exist out there, but perhaps the one universal truism across all of them is that all of them will have some mix of teaching and research elements to them. But most of them tend to emphasize one over the other. So, are you more interested in doing a position that's very research-oriented? Are you more interested in doing a position that's more teaching-oriented? You'll have to do both, but usually one takes primacy towards tenure requirements. And it's good to think about that a little bit. Which are you more interested in? Similarly, you may want to think some about do you want to do something discipline-specific? You know, most of us probably come from a specific disciplinary background, but there are a growing number of interdisciplinary jobs coming available as well, stuff particularly around food and agriculture. And there are pros and cons to both of those things, but that's something as well to be thinking about as you look for academic jobs. And then the third thing that I think is really important to think about in talking about what type of job would you like is actually everything outside of the job. Spend some time thinking about quality of life issues, because though the job is a big piece of our lives, we are not, I hope, just our jobs, and things outside of the job matter. So give some thought to, do you have certain places you would like to live? Are there certain regions, or do you want to be in a rural or an urban setting? Do you have any kind of family issues you need to think about? A partner who may need a job, or children, or needing to be near parents, or something like that. Are there any kind of socio-cultural needs you might want to think about? For example, if you exist within a minority category along dimensions of, say, race, or sexual orientation, or religion, These are things you might want to think about in terms of where you might end up job-wise. So you have given great thought to what type of job. I'm trying to tear through this because I'm keeping to the time limit here. Perhaps the biggest thing after that is preparing your materials. When you apply for an academic job, there are going to be 3 things that pretty much every application will ask for, and then there are going to be 3 things that not everything asks for, but they're pretty common, and so it's good to have a little preparation on this. First up, how many of you have a CV? Ooh, only a few of you. Okay, if you do, keep it updated. If you don't, seriously, when you get home next week, start one. I'm not kidding. You need a CV. That's like the extension of your business card. I'll let you look up how to do a CV if you have not talked about that before. But the cover letter is the second important thing, and perhaps more important than the CV, because the cover letter is the first thing that hiring committees are going to see. And first impressions matter, so you want to put your best foot forward here. The cover letter is typically going to be about 2 to 3 single-space pages. And this is where you explain why you are a good fit for the position you're applying for. What is it that you bring to that position that makes you the most awesome candidate in the pile? Now is not the time to be shy. Brag. Brag like there's nothing left to do but brag. So do not hold back with what you write. And then thirdly, you want to have at least three reference letter writers ready to send in letters. If you have more, that's great. You can pick and choose, but most places ask for 3 letters of reference. Your dissertation advisor, assuming you're working on a doctorate here, your dissertation advisor will be one of them. And then the rest, you can kind of discuss some of that. I highly recommend updating your letter writers every 2 to 3 weeks with where you've applied most recently and what the details are. And spreadsheets are great here, and the link that I've put up here is to a template file from basically a truncated version of what I used when I was on the market to keep track of both my own applications and stuff for my reference letter writers. So feel free to pillage and plunder that file and rewrite it to your own uses. I'm happy to share that. And then there's a few things that you might want to have ready that not every place will want, but they come up often enough that it's just good to have kind of ready to roll. One of those is a teaching portfolio. Now, a full teaching portfolio you'll probably only need if you apply to teaching-oriented positions, and they're big. A full teaching portfolio includes things like your teaching philosophy, evaluations, some courses you've taught, sample syllabi, teaching goals and strategies, any activities you developed. I mean, we're talking a ginormous document. But at the bare minimum, it's a good idea to come up with at least a 1 to 3 page teaching statement. That is more commonly going to be asked for. And that would include basic teaching philosophy and some general teaching goals and strategies that you might use in the classroom. A research statement is also a useful thing to have handy, and all sorts of different positions may ask for this. This is where you will talk about major projects you've worked on, yes, including your dissertation, as well as other stuff. But you'll also talk some about short and long-term research goals. Now, this doesn't mean that you're bound to those research goals. So if you get hired, they're not going to be coming back and checking and going, oh, well, you said in your research statement you were going to do this. Why aren't you? But most places, if they ask for this, they want to see that you're at least thinking beyond the dissertation. So it's a good idea to show them you've got some ideas for once that gets completed. And then the third thing that sometimes you will be asked for, and this one is especially common for research-intensive positions, some places will ask for a writing sample. Usually what they want here is, if you've published an article, that's a really good thing to include. If not, a really polished dissertation chapter is a really great thing to include here. Check with your advisor about what's the best thing to be submitting there. By the way, that's good advice for all of this. Talk to your advisor about all of this. A few other things to think about in preparing your materials. First of all, start early. This stuff takes a lot longer than you think. It's something that you will want to take time to revise and edit. Speaking of revising and editing, get other people to look over your materials. Your dissertation advisor, your committee members, other faculty if you can, even other friends in your program. How many of you have a dissertation writing support group? Anybody a part of one of those? Okay, if you are, it'd be a good idea to set aside some time with that group to workshop each other's materials. And if you're not, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good way to keep the momentum going and get good feedback from people who are supposed to be at least somewhat supportive of you, I would hope. And then lastly, customize your materials, especially that cover letter. Make sure that for each application you send off, you take the time to look at the details and be sure you're including what they ask for. Those little things matter. You don't want to send off a cover letter that references a different school than the one you're applying to, for example. I've seen a few of those, having been on a hiring committee, and they don't make it very far.
And change the name of the saved file. Because
Yeah.
when that goes through.
Yes, save a different version every time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can always go back and check that. Yes, yes. All right, step 3 here. Whew, I need to pick up the pace. All right, I'll say 2 very quick things about the interview process. Assuming you have gotten invited for an interview, congratulations, that's a big step. 2 things to think about. One is the job talk. This is almost universal across academic jobs. This is basically an extended discussion of your research. So you'll probably talk a bit about something from your dissertation or some project you've been very heavily involved in, and there'll be a Q&A, and they will vet you and make sure you're good enough, and prepare. The other one that I will say nothing more than the one sentence to say what it is, some places will ask for a teaching demo, especially teaching-oriented places. So if you're going to apply to those kinds of places, just think about what you might be able to do in a short demo to demonstrate your teaching. All right, last step here. Let's assume you've applied, you've interviewed, and congratulations, you got a job offer somewhere. First of all, go out for a drink because you've earned it. Never accept a job immediately. Never accept a job immediately. You should always take a little time to think about it, especially if you have family who will be coming with you. You want to talk to your partner about that, that's good. But in part, this is because you are going to want to negotiate. This is something that we don't talk about very much, but it is incredibly common. Do not be afraid to negotiate, and do not be afraid that they are going to retract the offer from you because you've asked for stuff. They've already decided they want you. They may say no to what you ask for, but if you don't ask for it now, you're not going to get it. You have the most power in this entire process between the time you've been offered a job and you accept it. So it is in that window that you have the power to make some changes. So, what kinds of things, that was supposed to be up to negotiate. What are things you should ask for? Most important thing, salary increase. Ask for more salary. Most places expect you to do this. If they say they can't do more, all right, that's fine. Move on to the next stuff. Use that as ammunition. Say, oh, well, since you couldn't increase my salary, can you give me this instead? But always ask for salary increase because raises are usually based on a percentage of your pay. So more is better in this case. Other stuff to think about. You might want to ask about research or travel stipends. You might want to ask about course releases. This is especially good in your first term because new course preps are really tough and moving to a new place is really tough. If they can't give you a course release, when I started my job, they could not afford to give me a course release. But what they did instead was they said, well, you know what? We'll let you do 2 sections of intro so that you don't have as many course preps to have to do. And that really made the difference. That helped a lot. Sometimes you have to ask about furniture and equipment and computers and software and things that you might need to actually do your job. So at least ask about it. You could ask about moving or house hunting expenses. See if they can put anything towards helping you move. And depending on the family situation, sometimes you might be asking for a partner hire, especially if your partner is an academic. Or if they're not, even asking for help with finding your partner a job. Can they put in a good word or make some suggestions or something like that? Basically, ask for the things that you will need to be successful in your job. And I went way over 8 minutes. I apologize. I'm going to hand it off to Farryl to talk about the next piece here.
Okay.
Ready?
So I shift down, and should I be doing the
Sure.
thing?
Any questions at the end?
Yeah, we'll
have
open
a
it up
whole-
for Q&A at the end.
Q&A
yeah.
at the end.
Yeah, I'll try to start. That's as far as
Okay,
I can
well,
get.
hi. I love this conference. I hope you guys are having a great time. I started coming my first year of my doctoral program, and I have decided this is my must-come-to conference every single year. So I'm glad you're here, and if this is your first time, I hope you fall in love with it as I have. As I mentioned before, I'm Farryl Bertman, and to kind of describe some of the letters after my name, I do have a PhD. I'm also a registered dietitian, and I'm also a licensed medical nutrition therapist. I'm going to talk today about nonprofit research centers, and I'm not sure about your programs, but this was completely off the radar within the seminars that I was going to for professional development. They focused on academic track, and they focused on private industry, and I think that's in postdocs. So there really wasn't a whole lot of discussion with you over there, with the nonprofit sector. And I'm really excited to have an opportunity to talk to you guys about this, because this is a fantastic area to think about moving into. So I work at the Gretchen Swanson Center for Nutrition. I am in Omaha, Nebraska. I visited Omaha for the very first time on my interview, and actually it's a hidden gem. I grew up in Burlington, and there are some very interesting and unexpected commonalities in Omaha. And I keep saying Omaha, who knew? So it's a great location. It is, I think, I'm in the middle of corn country, and I like to think of this as an incredible opportunity for impact, right? We'll leave it there. So I think I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. That's my case study. And I am a research scientist. And that means, and I'll go a little bit more into details in a moment, I am 100% research. If any of you guys have the luxury of an RA, I'm pretty much an RA without a dissertation and any other obligation. So I love what I do. I get to do research every single day, all day long. And I have no service obligations. I mentioned to you earlier that I'm an assistant professor, and I'll talk a little bit about advocating for affiliation. So I have the weight of the University of Nebraska Medical Center behind me, but my requirements are to attend faculty meetings once a month. And to be available to collaborate if somebody wants to go in on a grant with me, which is really nice. So it's a great deal. Nonprofit research centers are really up and coming. I'm not sure if you guys are kind of getting the feelers out for some centers that are coming up. I predict that this is going to be a really growing opportunity for people that have their master's degrees and have their doctorates in the future. And I'll explain a little bit more why this is also attractive for research funding opportunities. In my center, there are 15 of us. There are 4 PhDs. We have an executive director. I have 3 project managers. 3 project managers. Do any of you guys work with a project manager? They are incredible. They take care of all of the logistics for me. They help me with my budgeting. They help me with the phone calls. They help me with the calling and connecting and all of those things. They keep me on task. They build the agendas. I come and share my intellectual property, and they're doing those things that as a graduate student, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go into research because I don't really like this part. But they're there, and they're doing it. And then we also have 4 research associates. They go into the field and do all of the surveying, the cold calling, the data collection, and then they bring it back. And they also do a lot of the analysis. So again, a key part of what I do is I write grants, I write up manuscripts, and then I share my intellectual property, which is thinking about, okay, you ran this analysis, was this the appropriate analysis, how are we going to interpret it? So I have SPSS, I have SAS. I very rarely actually am running these myself because I'm delegating and teaching people how to fish so that they can help me do my job better. So it's a pretty nice gig. Here are some of the advantages, and I mentioned a few of them. 100% research. And if you're not familiar with the power of a nonprofit status, it's huge. It opens up a lot of research grant opportunities. Plus, if you are in a nonprofit, you can negotiate your student loans for 10% of your salary for 10 years, and then they pay off the rest. So financially, it's a very viable option. I am in the middle of the community. I'm working with nonprofits, so I really get to get out of my silo and interact with folks that are on the ground doing stuff. And by the way, I work in public health, community nutrition, so I'm able to get out there and do that. The next one, if you're not familiar with indirects, if you are in a university, often the indirects run 50 to 60, whatever, tell me here, percent indirects sometimes, I don't know. At least ASU was pretty high. 34%. 53%. If you are looking at grants that cap the indirect at 10%, unless you can really negotiate with the university, it becomes almost impossible to apply for those grants. If they cap my indirects at 10%, then we just readjust the budget and we try to pick up that slack somewhere else. I heard the analogy when I first started from my colleague. We are working in a speedboat, and the university is a cargo ship. Now, there are great things about a cargo ship. It gets a lot of stuff done. You have wonderful things like HR and the student rec center and all these incredible things. But we are able to move in, grab stuff, get stuff turning and published very, very quickly. And there are some great advantages to that. One of my favorite things is I had to pay for something out of pocket and I was being reimbursed. I got reimbursed 3 days later. 3 days. I almost wept when she came in with my check. I don't know. I mean, I love ASU, but sometimes it was like 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and that gets painful. So that's another nice thing about the speedboat is you can get stuff done. I am well equipped. If I need to have additional things and we can tap into the resources, my workday should be 9 to 5. I am a workaholic, so I often work beyond that. But another nice thing about a nonprofit research center is that I technically work 40 hours a week. And I know that often in a university setting, it becomes very difficult if you have night classes and other responsibilities to have that. Okay. If you are looking at a nonprofit research center, you really have to understand the mission of the center, because the mission of the center is going to drive the type of grants that they want you to target. So make sure that your mission is really aligned, what you want to eventually specialize in is very much aligned with the mission. So my center is focused on food security, local foods, and child obesity prevention. Ideal for the type of work that I want to do. That doesn't always happen, but if you can align those, I think you're going to get a lot of support in what you're doing. Understand your contract, and this is something that can become a challenge. So I am in a right-to-work state. In Nebraska, I do not have a contract. And if you are somebody who really feels that having the stability of a year contract or 3-year contract or 10-year is something that you need to have to give you a little bit more academic freedom, make sure that the nonprofit that you're looking to join has that possibility. Look at the regional affiliations, understand what the other universities are in the area or other nonprofits that you can work in. And here's another one. You might, even if you wrote up the grant, you might not be the PI. There is an interesting hierarchy that you need to be aware of and understand when you're putting together those grants. So you might have put a lot of the legwork in and potentially end up as the co-investigator. So kind of understand that and have those discussions up front. And often we in the center take a consultant role. We could be subcontracted. We have a great subcontract right now through the CDC. So I get to start building those relationships with the CDC, but really my role is always going to be that of contracted research. Finally, in terms of the considerations, if you are concerned about how well-rounded your CV is, this is going to be research intensive. Currently, I am not teaching a single class. So if you're coming out of your program with limited to no teaching experience, make sure that if you were to choose to go into a center like this, that you're not going to have a gaping hole if you choose to go into another area. All right, so it's beyond the academic model. There's a lot of flexibility. I feel that one of the things that was kind of missing when I was looking for academic jobs originally is that some places were asking for me to describe my research lab. I absolutely feel that in my current position, I'm developing a research lab. I'm getting my work out there. I've been able to write 5 grants since I started 9 months ago, and I think that that is probably more than you would in an academic setting. I've been able to get all of my dissertation work into manuscript form and out, which I know is also very difficult when you're working with other responsibilities. So you are able to develop that lab. Finally, I think what is really a great skill that you can develop in this research setting is delegation. And it was something that I had a hard time doing because I was the person that was delegated to, and I loved it, but I had to be that person everywhere. And it's been a really great growth opportunity for me to learn to say, you go in the field, you run the statistics, you write up the intro, you look at the lit review, and then send me what you think. But I think that that can really help moving forward. And finally, I just wanted to say, I think when you're trying to decide what you're going to do next, some career choices will potentially close off some options. I would like to argue that working in a nonprofit research center, I do not feel like any of my options have been closed. I could consider this a transition and then go into an academic setting. And I believe that I now have the training if I wanted to go to a research intensive position that I could consider this equivalent to a very well-paid postdoc. So I think that it should stay on your radar as a possibility. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you. So I work for the Agency of Agriculture, so welcome to Vermont, everyone. Those of you who are coming from out of state, we're so happy to have you here. As you know, we're really committed to local foods, nutrition, to the connection between food and health and community health and economic development here in the state. So really excited to see all of this great activity happening at the nexus of all those issues. So maybe I'll be self-indulgent for a minute and just talk a little bit about my own career path. I had my undergrad, very interdisciplinary undergrad in environmental studies and African studies and environmental studies and, I already said political science was the third thing. And kind of, felt like the environmental studies thing was not the direction I wanted to go in. And really found agriculture as a place where many of my interests intersected. It was kind of like the human piece of a lot of the environmental studies work that that I was drawn to, and that connect. Everyone eats, so it's a really great place to connect. So I was looking for jobs, kind of maybe more nonprofit. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. Anyway, somehow ended up working on a farm out of undergrad, and really loved it. Worked there for 3 years. I managed a CSA north of Boston, and at a certain point realized that I wasn't intellectually stimulated anymore, as much as I loved having that experience to ground me. So I did go back to grad school for agricultural policy, and kind of it was a very interdisciplinary program, and still wasn't exactly sure where I would end up when I got out. But I had the pleasure of learning with Kathleen Merrigan, former Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, was my advisor. And I remember once in one of our agricultural policy classes, Kathleen making the point that we talk a lot about how farmers are aging. I think the average age of farmers in the census was like 58 or something. She was like, you should really think about government, because it's the same thing that's happening there. Government workers are kind of getting older. There's kind of this big retirement bubble that happens in state and federal government, and there's really great opportunity to make change and kind of shake things up in government. So that was kind of the first little thought in my head about considering government. My dad worked for the state of Connecticut. I remember growing up and thinking that sounds terribly boring. And working for the state didn't really appeal to me at that point. But looking for jobs out of grad school, I started to look at both USDA and state government. Knew I wanted to stay in the Northeast, so was looking for positions at the state level in New England and New York, and applied for this position. Was really attracted by the diversity of activities. So I'm in the development division of the Agency of Agriculture, which is kind of the marketing, promotion, non-regulatory side. I work in an environment where, I think about 75% of our agency is regulatory, and 25% of us are kind of on the marketing side. All the stereotypes that I had heard about government workers not working that hard have been proven to be totally false. I work with 108 of the most dedicated people that I have ever met. from meat inspection to dairy inspection to the water quality folks. People are there till 8 at night and on weekends, and people really have a passion for what they're doing. And a lot of us are also farmers. My husband and I actually also have an organic farm between here and Montpelier. So there's a really deep connection to the land. This is a really great time also to work in state government in agriculture in Vermont, because there's this renewed investment in agriculture as an economic development strategy. So I'll talk a little bit about what my job is. I administer the Working Lands Enterprise Program, which is investing $1 million per year in the agriculture and forestry sectors in the state, with the goals of increasing economic output and jobs and farm and forest business viability. Among many other things, I also manage our food export program and work in agritourism and work a lot with the meat industry, with meat processors. So that is a great thing about working in government, that there's just a lot of opportunity for diversity. And you're really kind of at this central place where, my network is huge at this point. People tend to include state government in the conversation, no matter what that conversation is. We're often in the room. So it's a really nice seat to have, to be able to work with university and nonprofits and the private sector. So I feel, I probably won't be one of those people who stays in government until I retire. I have a lot of career ahead of me, but I do feel like it's positioned me really well to jump to any number of different sectors from here. Just kind of a note on my grad school experience, I would say when I look back at every month when I pay that student loan bill, I remind myself that what I really paid for was the network. I still have such a powerful network. I actually just had lunch with a woman who I went to school with, and there's people who I went to school with who are doing phenomenal things all over the country and all over the world, and being able to access their expertise now and hopefully into the future has been really valuable. So take the time while you're in school to really cultivate that network. We were just saying a lot, we really took that for granted, that we would always be able to have these deep theoretical conversations at lunch every day, and now sometimes that doesn't happen as much anymore. So really taking the time to develop those relationships, because they will be long-term. I guess that's kind of the key of what I wanted to share, but would love to have, leave time for a dialogue, because I'm really curious to hear where everyone else is thinking of going. And I'll also mention that we actually are hiring 2 people in our development division right now, so if anyone's considering a job in state government, that was a great time.
I know one right there.
Yeah, good.
You hire foreigners?
What's that?
Do you hire foreigners?
Great question. I don't know what the status is on hiring Canadians.
So I'm Florence. As I mentioned, I work for the Center for Rural Studies, which is kind of a similar situation than for us. It's a non-profit research center, but it's actually located at the university in the College of Agriculture and Life Science, and it's been run for about 30 years. There's 4 of us on staff, and we have a director, which is also the chair of the Community Development and Applied Economics. And the 4 of us are at the master's level. So the center has a mix of, so we're self-funded researchers, which means that we need to bring money so that we can keep ourselves in a job, and we have a mix of projects, small projects, and then grants. So we do anything from just submitting a $4 million grant yesterday to the USDA, which went through successfully, so I'm at peace now, to writing very little contracts, $5,000, $10,000. And I think that's the beauty of it, which is, in a way, it's a center that is very applied. It's all about community development, responding to the needs of the population of the state of Vermont and beyond. But then at the same time, we get to do more of the academic research kind of thing, more of the theoretical questions. So I think that's been very interesting of being able to use the research that I do and then thinking about it further and how can we, think about it and take it further. What else I wanted to say? When I started grad school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. That was kind of the interesting piece. So I knew what field I wanted to be in. I knew I wanted to be in ag. I worked and volunteered for a nonprofit for 4 years out of my undergrad on the West Coast, and I studied economics as an undergrad and Spanish, and I never thought I'd use those things ever again. I was like, well, you know, we'll have to get a degree in something, and you know, when I started my undergrad, I actually wanted to be in the bank industry. And then I was like, wait a second.
Owning a bank.
No, like, being in a bank, I don't know why. And then, you know, within like the first two like microecon courses and like highly theoretical, and I was like, that is not really what I want to do. But the way the system is set up in France is you start in a major and you stick through it through the end. So that's what I did. The benefit of it is I came out with any student loan, so that was the good thing. But anyway, so I'm working in this nonprofits, working with exchange students for 4 years, learning tons and tons of things, intense program management, dealing with deadlines and different projects and making sure I don't lose people on course is what they're doing. And kind of similar to you, Chelsea, I was like, man, I'm not growing anymore. I've hit the point, and I was like, I want to go to grad school. I think I want to do ag, so I'm going to go work on a farm for a while and then see if that's what I want to do. And so like, yeah, this is really what I want to be doing. And by doing that too, I wanted to get the more of the applied piece of it. I mean, my family was in agriculture a generation before my parents, but I feel like I wanted the hands-on experience and kind of gain a little bit of credibility going into ag. And so I applied at UVM. For some reason, I always dreamed of coming to Vermont. Not sure why. Must have been the maple syrup or the ice cream. But anyway, I started at UVM, and then really soon I realized that research was something that I was really excited about. I got to work with this advisor that just threw lots of different research projects at me. Some were for my thesis and some were totally unrelated, but it's like, hey, do you want to work on this? And I guess I was kind of the yes person. I was like, sure, I'll do this. And that really helped me build a little bit of a portfolio, understand what all of the different methodology that we can do, different fields within food, you know, from the very macro, very small level to macro. And then I was like, man, I would really like to do research. And he actually offered me to stay with him. He had a big grant, and somebody had just moved away that was working on this grant. And so that's how I started the center. So I started working on his grant of his, which, you know, I was interested, but it wasn't my passion. But for me, it was kind of a way into the door. And then from them, I've been able to build my portfolio of projects. I think I'm currently